Tonight's topic, one which teenagers are curious about but remains an awkward subject for many adults.
We're talking about sex. It's been 8 years since schools started teaching about sex and contraception, yet teenage pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases are still on the rise among teens. Sexually transmitted infections hit a record high of 820 in 2007, while teenage abortions went up by 9% to some 1,400 cases in 2006 compared to the year before.
In Britain recently, a 13-year-old boy became a father of a baby with his 15-year-old girlfriend. If you thought that was shocking, in Singapore, in 2004, a 9-year-old girl had a baby with a 14-year-old boy.
Are we on the right track when it comes to educating the young about sex, its consequences and about relationships? In studio with us, homegrown sex guru Dr. Wei Xiang Yu, who's perhaps better known as Dr. Love.
And Mrs. Joanne Koh, President of Focus on the Family, a local charity dedicated to the strengthening of families. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, can I start first? Both of you are kind of sitting on different sides of the fence. You know, one, Mrs. Koh, you are, in a sense, preaching abstinence before marriage, and you have dealt with a lot of cases about teenagers and sexuality. Joanna, can I ask you first about what you are trying to get across to young people today?
I think what we're trying to tell them, not quite preaching abstinence per se, but empowering them to make the right decisions about sex, about sexuality, and more importantly about relationships.
And so what do you do in your workshops? What do you mean?
Well, the reason why I say it's not just about sex or sexuality, but about relationships in general is because one of the findings that we take back from our workshops is that the questions most young people have is not really how do you do it or what's the best way it gets done, but it's really about how do I know if a girl likes me? You know, what do I do if this boy is like trying to harass me? Or, you know, all my friends, all my girlfriends, or you know, the clique I hang out with, they all are attached. You know, what should I do? Yeah, so it's more of relationship questions that they are asking versus about sex.
Okay, so perhaps they're not ignorant about sex. I mean, do you find that to be a case, Dr. Wei?
Well, for me, we receive 6,000–7,000 questions via SMS every day. 60–70% are very directed to just sex-related issues like pregnancy, hormonal cycle, premature ejaculation, so on and so forth. We do have, 10–20% about relationship, about feelings. Yeah, that's my stance.
Are these teenagers or?
A lot of them will be teenagers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
But Joanna, coming back to you, you know, you said you don't preach abstinence, but do you tell the young people that you should keep sex after marriage?
Of course we do, because we have to tell them the facts and the truth. Yeah, and that's the hard truth. But the reason why I wouldn't use the word preach is because it kind of devalues the message. You know, it makes young people in a 4-hour workshop that we typically do is to spend the 4 hours telling them, no, you can't have sex, or no, you can't have premarital sex. But most of the participants, I would say easily 99% of them, after going through our workshop, will discover that, hey, actually this is not about, you know, telling us off. It's not about talking down to us. It's about sharing with us information, sharing with us about life, about love, you know, what love is, what it isn't, about relationships in general. Yeah, and it's the direct interaction that we get with them that we find, you know, a lot of these perceptions are sometimes adult assumptions and not so much what the kids are concerned with.
Why do you think that despite the sexuality education program in schools today, that you still see a rise in teenage pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases among young people today? Dr. Wei first?
Well, I think we need to explore all channels. Today's society, we do not have all channels. We have abortion hotline, we have some counseling centers, we've got some tutorial style, teacher-centric education. But again, what happens at home, what happens in the cyberspace, and a lot of other channels are all not really explored. This is very, very important. This is very, very important, especially internet as well as SMS platforms. If you actually compare using classroom styles or interaction between parents and the kids at home, this is really doesn't keep the identity of the kid to be anonymous. But in new media platform, internet as well as SMS, we have them in a fairly secure platform, interacting while remaining anonymous.
So you're saying there's a lot of information out there. There's no, the kids know what pregnancy is, how people, consequence of sex. But this and why is that? So
what we're saying is there isn't platforms, enough platforms in the new media to allow a dialogue with the kids being anonymous. That is important. It addresses a certain respect for the kids. We need to put them on equal level before we to them.
See, in your, what you just said, and you mentioned home, you know, because I personally feel home is one of the biggest places where a lot of things can be done, you know. And I would like to ask Deborah, she's a mother, she's a mother of two young children. How does...
Well, my kids are still, like, not teens yet, 10 and 6. I mean, I try to explain to them about the biological part of it. But we haven't gone to relationships because I think they're too young. But I would start as soon as I think they are capable of doing so. But I think I also get the sense that a lot of parents abdicate this responsibility to the schools and say that it's the schools or the churches or people like Joanna who conduct workshops who should be responsible for that. I mean, do you find that...
Do you get that?
Responsible for that. I mean, do you find that...
Do you get that?
From the young people, we're also hearing from the teachers, somewhat mostly inadequate because they're not trained to be sex experts, but in a sense they've been made to become experts. Parents who don't feel comfortable talking about sex, they have the schools do it because they feel the schools perhaps have more information. But I actually want to come back to your first question, Deborah, and asking about the rise in teenage abortion or pregnancies or even STIs. One of the things that we have found, which is quite interesting, is that although there is this rise in the occurrence of the consequences of teenage sex, but we are not actually seeing the same rise in the occurrence of teenagers being sexually active. Because if you actually look at reports, last report that we read, which is by Biassuring, they found that only 3 out of 10 young people were sexually active.
Okay, hold that thought to go for a break, and we'll come back and speak about how active teens are in having sex.